Hello everyone, welcome to the class after the break. As I have already informed on Google Classrooms, we had nearly completed 3 units before the campus was closed, and I believe Mr. Abid has already completed Unit 5. That leaves us with Unit 4 and some topics of Unit 3. First, we will be discussing Unit 4, and then whatever topics we have skipped in Unit 3, we will be discussing those ones. So, Unit 4. Unit 4 is about interfacing of various input-output devices with our microcontroller. Since we have been discussing 8051 microcontroller, we will be discussing interfacing of these input-output devices with 8051 microcontroller. To start the discussion, let us discuss about the types of input-output devices we will be discussing in this unit and what exactly we mean by interfacing. So we have two different types of devices. We call them input devices, we call them output devices. I think we all know the basic definition of input devices and output devices. Input devices, input device, these are the devices which are used to take input, either from a user or from or this input can be some physical quantity. For example, in a typical embedded system like an AC, typical embedded system AC, this input can be either something entered by the user like temperature he needs or fan speed he needs, and these inputs are entered using a keyboard or a keypad. They are simply button switches. These can be placed directly on the AC or they may be on a remote. Also, AC continuously takes input from a temperature sensor so that it may know the room temperature, the ambient temperature. Similarly, the output devices of an AC, output devices, they are also of two types. One is where the messages are displayed, maybe an LCD screen, a small LCD screen, or LEDs which blink or don't blink according to different inputs. And then we have some other types of outputs that control something. For example, something that controls the heating element, how much heat has to be produced, or there may be actuators which control the speed of the fan, or which control whether a fan has to be turned on or off. The simplest actuator is motor. So in this, so what are the input output devices of what are the input output devices of this embedded system AC? We have a keyboard. Keyboard is one of the input devices. Temperature sensor is also an input device. LCD is an output device. A motor is an output device. In this chapter, we will be discussing about how these input and how these output devices may be connected to our microcontroller. We will be starting with input devices, and we will be starting with simplest of input devices, and those are switches. And then we'll be moving to keyboards, keypads. We'll be also discussing interfacing of sensors to our microcontroller, sensors or transducers. Sensors or transducers are those components that transform a physical quantity, any physical quantity like temperature, pressure, into electrical signals, voltage or current change. And then we have output devices. Output devices we will be discussing in our chapter all are also of two types. First, these are displays like LCDs, LEDs, etc. And then we have actuators. Actuators are actually reverse of transducers. They are the components that change electrical energy into motion, into mechanical energy. Simplest example is motor. And now what we mean by interfacing, basically our microcontrollers, they are digital devices, they use TTL logic. That means they only recognize two voltage levels, 0 volts for low and 5 volts for high. Our these input devices, our these sensors, our these transducers, our LCDs, our LEDs, our actuators, motors may not necessarily run on 0 and 5 volts only. So before connecting them to microcontroller, we have to find a way to change to for input devices to change their output to an output that is recognizable by the microcontroller. And in terms of actuators, they might need more power, they might need more voltage, they might run on 12 volts instead of 5 volts, they might need high current that a microcontroller may not be able to give. So we have to connect to these devices using interfacing circuitry. So we will be discussing all these things in this unit. We will be starting with switches. We will be then discussing LEDs, and then we will be discussing keypads and LCDs, then maybe sensors and transducers and some kinds of motors. Okay, then in the next video I will start with the interfacing of switches and LCDs, switches and LEDs. Thank you.